And on to updates from the Russia-Ukraine war. The world on Friday witnessed one of the most horrific attacks which claimed around 50 lives, including that of 5 innocent children. 100 others were severely injured. The incident took place at a train station in the eastern Ukraine where civilians were waiting to be evacuated. President Zelenskyy condemned the attack and called the Russian military evil with no bounds. United States President Joe Biden termed the attack as horrific atrocity by the Russian forces. So that's the latest that we have coming in from the Russia-Ukraine war, where clearly there's no end to Russia's assault on Ukraine and its innocent civilians. It was only yesterday, on Friday, that in fact one of the most horrific attacks was witnessed once again in Ukraine, which claimed around 50 lives, including that of 5 innocent children. Meanwhile, as per reports, several others, almost 100 people were also severely injured in this attack. Remember that this incident took place at a train station in eastern Ukraine, where the Ukrainian civilians were waiting to be evacuated. Now, time and again, President Zelenskyy has called out the Russian president, the Russian military, for its attack on the innocent civilians and Ukraine. And this time, once again, Zelenskyy condemned the attack and called the Russian military evil with no bounds, absolutely no bounds. And I'm being joined by my colleague Deepak Bopanna live, who's reporting from the ground. He's reporting from capital Kyiv. Deepak, clearly no end to Russia's assault. Even after being thrown out of the United Nations Human Rights Council, Russia couldn't care less, clearly.
Well, we've seen, different subtle messages of sorts that's coming to the fore from, Russia time and again. We saw during Joe Biden's visit in Warsaw, while there was a meeting with the Polish president there, some strong statements that he made, called, at that point in time, Putin a butcher and a war criminal, and of course called for further sanctions. We saw at that point in time a missile strike that took place very close, to Poland in Lviv, and that was probably one of the first time that the western region of Lviv, came under fire from the Russian missiles. And immediately after the UNHRC ouster, we've seen probably another message of sorts that's being sent, and especially bombing a train where you would know that there would be people who are of course trying to evacuate refugees. There are refugees themselves. And so many volunteers who are working around that place. At this point in time, the death toll is 50, and the numbers are only rising, is what we've been told, because the people who've been injured have received some serious injuries and they're battling for their lives as well. So it's quite shocking that such sort of incidents continue to occur. Meanwhile, in Luhansk, in areas like Odessa, they continue to hear explosions through the last couple of hours, is what we've picked up. So we'll really have to see how things pan out, and whether there will be another round of negotiation and dialogue between the two nations to put an end to this situation.
All right, but time and again, Deepak, we've been reading reports that the Russian forces are retreating from several areas in Ukraine. We heard how even the UK informed that the Russian forces have in fact retracted from northern Ukraine. But still, these reports of utmost brutality are emerging.
Well, when we spoke to the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces here, he said, especially around the Kyiv Oblast and Chernihiv region, as per the negotiation talks and the agreement, it was these areas that the troops will pull out from. But the Deputy Chief of Staff, Mr. Alexander, when we spoke to him, he suggests that it was the stiff resistance and the counterattack by the Ukrainians that the Russians could not really sustain, because they planned to take over the capital in about maybe 3 days or a week, but the fight sustained for about 4 weeks. and they didn't have any sort of supply chain. They didn't have, any backup coming their way, and they had to retreat. So it was sort of a strategic retreat is what, the Ukrainians are calling it. But of course, as we've been mentioning, as of now, the troops that have pulled back is only from the Kyiv Oblast and the Chernihiv region. Whereas, of course, eastern Ukraine, many places near the Black Sea, even near Mariupol, of course, we've seen the kind of devastation. And even now, there are people waiting to be evacuated, and there is no corridor that they're getting at this point in time. So it is a very difficult situation, even around Kharkiv, Odessa. So we'll really have to see, the next round of talks, and whether that will be, in any way helping the refugees who are trying to leave certain areas which are coming under heavy shelling and firing.
All right. Well, only time can tell how effective is the next round of talks going to be. Thank you for all those details, Deepak.